It's interesting that the Canadian Electroacoustic Community is 25 years old. It was started in 1986, and out of necessity, really. There was all these disparate practitioners across the land, and at that point, 1986, we didn't have the internet. The Canada Post wasn't really helping us very much, and in order to bring people together that were working in basically electroacoustic music at that point, some kind of umbrella organization to try to provide support for funding and connect it with other artistic organizations in the country was founded, and it's been up and down depending on funding, etc. But I think right now, as Kevin intimated, in terms of its status in the world, it has a very high profile in terms of organizations that support. I think at this point we say media arts, since the practitioners are not just electroacoustic composers anymore, but they dabble into quite a wide range of art, sound, visual art, movement, and with some kind of technology. Perhaps I'm a good individual to work as a segue between Kevin Austin's presentation in Montreal and in Calgary here, since he discussed the Elecane instruments, and when I first arrived in Montreal in 1983 at McGill University, the several studios there were populated with many of Eulecane's instruments. And so this sine tone bank that Kevin Austin was mentioning that Istvan Anhalt had used to create this piece was still there. And I remember spending 3 or 4 hours, there was 50 sine tones in the bank. And I spent 3 or 4 hours trying to tune some big complicated spectral chord. But of course, about 3 minutes after you tuned any of the generators, it started to drift. So it was just like a microtonal nightmare. But I did use a number. There was a wonderful sequencer and a couple of the multi-track tape player that he had built was non-functioning, but was sitting in a corner in one of the rooms. So that sort of connects me to that history, but also to Kevin Austin at Concordia University, where I started teaching in 1991 and co-teaching with Kevin in the first year electroacoustic music course. Now, what I wanted to offer today was something I've been working on the last couple of years. I think a lot of composers working in technology have had this inclination to start to deal seriously with the visual domain. Some people have a visual acuity quite naturally and are drawn to that, but I think the transparency of the technology in audio and in image is such that once one has the skills and the tool set in one, it's very easy to cross over to the other and start as a sound person to start working in image, because cut and paste, transformations, filters, changing of speed, changing of focus, etc. These things as concepts translate from one to the other fairly easily on a superficial level. Once you start, I think, to try to really create something of substance, then you come up against some more serious issues between the two modalities of image and sound. I just want to read something that's sort of from a paper that I actually gave in Montreal at a conference this summer called Imagining Visual Music. Just read a little excerpt from this. Tremendous effort has been exerted since the inception of Musique concrète and electroacoustic music more than 60 years ago to avoid, repress, or at the very least carefully negotiate the influences and workings of the visual, and to establish and maintain a purely sonic practice of perception, conception, and reception for the art form we now call electroacoustic music. In fact, electroacoustic music in the broadest sense has always cultivated a vital, if somewhat ambivalent, relationship with the visual domain, from the use of visual metaphors to denote and clarify concepts and attributes, to the impetus of the visual in programmatic objectives and compositional narrative, from the visual tenets of concert presentation amid a staunchly anti-visual acousmatic rhetoric, to the physical surrogacy of time and space navigated via the visual interface and iconography of the computer. At Electronic Music Studies Conference in 2005, composer Diego Garo stated, "Composers of electroacoustic music worldwide seem to be drawn almost instinctively to a new, exciting media which combines electroacoustic sounds with the moving image." And four researchers from Britain, Hunt, Kirk, Orton, and Morrison stated 10 years ago that it was urgent to begin at least a preliminary debate on the organizational framework for the combination of image and sound, and asked the question, what does it mean to compose an audiovisual work? Tools that make common tasks and procedures of sound and image, capture, modification, composition, and presentation, would now appear to be in place and key to the current fluency of audiovisual exploration and production. Yet beyond the fact that readily available technologies facilitate exploration and the procedures of creating with sound and image, several other factors must be considered in order to fully apprehend the present inclination towards the audiovisual, especially by those whose point of departure is the sonic. And so one of the things I've sort of dealt with since embarking on dealing with the image is coming so heavily from a sonic background, moving around too much with the camera there, and what that means as I start to take on, start to explore, trying to combine these two. There's immediately the sense that, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. Just because I turn a video camera on and I can make a filter, do something to it, do I really know what I'm doing? It's not the same as what I have been doing in terms of sonic capture transformation. And so there are a number of ways into this. I think one guide to begin with is perhaps Michel Chion, the electroacoustic composer who has done a great deal of writing and study of film itself in terms of its dramaturgy, but also in terms of film sound and the voice in the cinema. And his concepts of the audiovisual contract and syncresis are quite interesting as a starting point. This idea that whenever the phenomena of the screen and the coming together of image and sound on the screen for the last century has built up in the general phenomena of viewing or auditing these in combination, a kind of contract where we, just as in the theater, you suspend disbelief that you're not in a theater, but rather you're out with Hamlet on the heath, etc. This is the same with the screen. We enter into a kind of contract to believe that the sounds and the images coexist in this particular space. And also his concept of syncresis, the fact that the temporal synchronization of image and sound, again, you can take almost any sound with certain kinds of images, certain kinds of impacts, certain kinds of movements, and combine them in a convincing fashion. We enter into a willing belief and fusion of the particular image, the particular trajectory, particular speed, etc., and the sound that accompanies it or propels it. And so these kinds of things are quite interesting to take into audiovisual work, where again, it's a studio-based process. It's a capture, transform, render, compose type of process. Some of my work has also moved into live processing. I have some works for live players with live audio signal processing and also live video. But I'd like to maybe play just an excerpt of a piece from 2005, which was my first real entry into this field. It's a piece called Filling, and is actually part of a larger series of pieces that involve various kinds of chamber ensembles and certain concepts. This one, Filling, was really the concern that there's a big discrepancy between the frame of the screen as we view it. It's bounded. No matter how big the screen is, except if it's a IMAX or something, there's always a bounding of the screen, but in terms of sound, it's not bound. It's completely encompassing. And so a lot of what I'm trying to do visually is trying to deal with the screen as this limited palette And so in much of the piece, I don't use the entire screen. Only little bits of the screen are used as I sort of investigate what it means to, I guess you could say, diffuse the sound or diffuse the image around the screen, just as the image, the sound would be diffused in the space. So we can listen to watch and listen to a little excerpt of that. So this is, just as in electroacoustic music, there are many approaches from a sort of sample-based musique concrète type of strategy to more automated types of strategies, algorithmic composition, etc. You have the same thing in audiovisual composition. What you've just seen and heard is really a music visual concrète, in which you have video image, you have audio recordings, and there is transformations of those through the various processes we have at our disposal, and a composition, a composting, or adding together one and the other, trying to find some kind of perhaps synesthetic or intuitive connection between density, color, motion, all these various concepts and words that we share between the visual and the sonic. Other practitioners such as Brett Batty and McGreerson, etc., they're using a different way of bringing image and sound together that's much more at the machine level, so that there's another kind of a single source, a single type of computing that gives rise to both sound and both image. So I think I'll hand it over to our next guest. Thank you.